Hey, y'all. Welcome to the Reckless Optimist podcast. My name is Megan. I'm a family nurse practitioner with a deep passion for mental health. On this show, we showcase guests who have shown tenacity, grit, mental strength, and who embody the word resilience. A quick disclaimer before we start. This show is not a substitute for mental diagnosis or treatment. We do recommend that if you're struggling with your own emotional well-being, you see a mental health provider. I'm so excited that you guys are here. Let's get into it. Hey, everyone. Today on the podcast, we have Kelsey. Kelsey is a dear friend of mine. I've known her for over a decade, since she was young, early 20s. She is a beast in the gym. We know each other from working out at the same gym. Shout out to CrossFit Stand. Mariah and Sean, their gym was amazing. That's how me and Kelsey know each other. Kelsey has been through a lot in her life. She has a very tragic story that she's going to share tonight about her brother, Jake. Jake, unfortunately, passed away the night that she got married, and she will be sharing that story tonight. It is a very vulnerable story and definitely one that displays a lot of grief, but ultimately resilience and hope for the future. So I know you guys are going to appreciate this story tonight. Let's get into it. Hey, everyone. Help me welcome Kelsey to the podcast.
Hello.
I'm so glad that you're here. Me and you have known each other for a long time. I was doing the math before we started, and I think it's been 12 years maybe.
Oh, yeah. It's been about 12 years. It's been a long time now.
Yeah.
A lot of different phases.
Yeah. We've grown up together.
I know. I still remember when you told me that you were having twins.
Yeah. So we know each other. We were at the same gym. So shout out to Mariah and Sean at CrossFit Stand for the best gym ever.
Mm-hmm.
Such a good gym. Such a small community family vibes, you know?
Still some of the best times of my life. I mean, truly. Talk about it with my other good friends that you know, and the best times.
Yeah. They really created a magic there. Yeah.
Absolutely. It was so much fun. I feel like, again, just really fell in love even more with CrossFit and working out and body positivity and everything from that point.
Do you still do CrossFit?
No, I don't do CrossFit anymore. I am an Orange Theory girly.
Okay.
I love Orange Theory. I still am under the same concept. I have to go somewhere. I need to be present. I've gone through phases, especially through COVID, where I've worked out at home, but I now am fully committed to Orange Theory. I actually just did my 500th class.
Whoa, girl.
Yes,
Slow down.
So I love it, but I like, you know me, I like the socializing. I like to be able to talk to people and build still another community. Yeah. So shout out to Orange Theory, Hamilton Mill.
Yeah, they're awesome. I've popped into a few of Orange Theory classes, but it's so funny. I was describing you to my fiance. I was like, this is the girl I'm interviewing. She is a total beast. In the gym, she had all the PRs. Not only was she strong, she was fast too. Yeah.
I do still hold that title, even at Orange Theory. So the strength is still there. The speed, not so much. I'm a little more tired, but yeah. So
no, you definitely were one of the athletes I looked up to because you also were very humble about it. You would I don't even remember the weight you could lift back then, but it was like insane amounts. And then you would just be like, yeah, it's totally normal. And I'm like, no, that's not normal.
No, it's not.
You're a super athlete.
Oh, thanks.
Yeah.
Don't feel that way these days, but yes, still very active.
You've got the cutest little boys. We were just talking about that before we jumped on. How old are they now?
So I have a 4-year-old and I have an almost 2-year-old. He turns 2 in July. So yes, I have 2 little boys. Baker is my 4-year-old and Brooks is my almost 2-year-old.
So you're not busy at all.
I'm not. I'm really not. Work full time, Orange Theory, raising some 2 wild boys, baseball, everything.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's a lot of fun.
And you are an occupational therapist?
Yes, I'm an occupational therapist by trade. I don't practice anymore. Now I work on the administrative side and I'm helping run a home health company here in Georgia. So yeah, I work with them.
Well, we're going to start our episode out with a quote like we do each time. And the quote I have for your episode is from, I'm going to butcher this name, but let me try, Haruki Murakami. He is a thought-provoking Japanese writer, and it's from the book Kafka on the Shore. And I saw this quote. It stopped me in my tracks. I loved everything about it. And I thought it was perfect for your story and your episode. So the quote goes, and once the storm is over, you won't remember how you made it through, how you managed to survive. You won't even be sure whether the storm is really over. But one thing is certain. When you come out of the storm, you won't be the same person who walked in. That's what the storm is all about. What does that quote mean to you?
I mean, jumping kind of right into it, it's my storm, my big storm, is my brother Jake passing before his death and after, and that big storm and who I am, and reflecting on leading up to this podcast and kind of giving a preview of just I'm not the same person that I was before that. I'm so completely, I feel like, hardwired and different than I was before that incident. So I see so much of that, but then also it's positive. There's so many different things about me that I feel like I'm so different as a person than what I was before that point. It's definitely, it shaped me into something completely different than what I was.
I read this quote, it makes me think of a few things. There's times in your life, maybe 4 to 5, that completely change you forever. And some of these are happy moments: marriage, becoming a
Uh-huh.
mother, getting a new job, graduating. But then there are also the sad ones, the difficult ones: divorce, death, a big health diagnosis. And so
Uh-huh.
I think life is a classroom, right? So can we turn our pain into wisdom? That's what this whole quote makes me think of. When bad things happen to us, what are we going to do with that? Are we going to, become victims of that pain ourselves? Or are we going to transform that later on into something more positive and productive? And when you're in the thick of those things, of the trauma, you can't even think straight, right? So a lot of this is something you look back retrospectively and analyze what happened. But in the thick of it, it's not like you have the insight to know that you're going to turn this into some type of positive movement. And it's something I think you learn over time. The more adversity you go through, not necessarily the easier it becomes, but the more you can learn from it and process it.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I completely agree.
Yeah. Well, we're going to get into your stories. Wherever you feel comfortable, just take us back to the beginning.
Yeah, absolutely. When I reached out to you, it was along the lines of addiction and where, we're really at with that. And I wanted to meet with you to really discuss my late brother Jake's story and kind of his path to addiction and where it led him. And growing up, my parents were married. They ended up getting divorced around whenever I was 7. We lived in Colorado at the time, and it was very traditional divorce. We saw dad every other weekend. Whenever you're go through a divorced family, and I think most people agree, then your siblings, they're your person though you're with no matter what. You're going from house to house. You're going from place to place, no matter what though you guys are together. And so it really was me and Jake together from the beginning. And so he's my only biological brother between my mom and my dad. And, so pretty quickly we set off on this path of, being divorced kids and having to go from house to house. But it was always us, on airplanes, in cars, everything. And then around when I was 10, we moved to Georgia because my mom got remarried. My dad was still in Colorado, but then a few years later, he moved to Arizona. So again, still through all this, me and my brother were hopping on airplanes then to fly to Arizona, and we were together. I have a wonderful stepdad. I had a very, feel like, happy life, very involved in the church. Me and him grew up going to church. Both my parents very involved. Even thinking back, they never even, my mom and my stepdad, and even my dad, I don't remember them drinking. I don't remember any drugs. I don't remember any involvement or seeing them regularly do anything that was social with drugs or alcohol. Especially my mom was very against having any alcohol really in the home or drinking in front of us. So anyway, just to kind of paint that picture of, what our home life was, it was very stable, even though we were a divorced family. Some hiccups here and there of like wanting to maybe go live with dad, wanting to stay with mom. I think things that are, again, very common in being in a divorced family. You do feel this pull to be with dad and this pull to be with mom. And me and my brother went through that. But overall, my parents were at every single soccer game for me. They were at every single football game or wrestling match for my brother. My dad came every couple of months and he would watch us play sports as well. He was with his long-term girlfriend and my stepmom for a long time. Her name is Angie and she has 3 kids and I am very close to them still. That's who I refer to as my stepbrothers and my stepsister, very close to them and consider them also my siblings to this day. And so we were all together. So that kind of gives a preview of, just our background because I like to give that because a lot of times I hear, and I know I'm jumping ahead, but when we're talking about addiction and we're talking about anything along the lines of alcoholism or drug abuse, a lot of times it's like, well, what was your home life growing up? It's like, oh, well, you come from a divorced family. And I'm like, I come from a divorced family, but everybody's very stable, good jobs, we're involved, we're there. It's not what I would picture of being somebody then that's going to produce then a product of being addicted to drugs or alcohol. So, and that's just a perception of what we have, of what it should look like. So anyway, Jake was an athlete, and I'm preface to say I'm the older sister. Jake is 2 years younger than me, and so we're not only were we were close in age. So we really did so much together. He was an athlete, and he played football very early on, and he injured his back pretty early. And whenever he was, probably 13, 14, he had injured his back so severely that then he was prescribed opioids to help with pain. So again, looking back, we're like, oh my gosh, was that the starting point, that we didn't even realize? So he was prescribed some very heavy medication for a teenager that I probably now, if my kid were to be prescribed, would be going, whoa, why are we not doing PT? Why are we not trying any sort of other pain management beyond medication before that? And then I'm going to go talk to, a neurosurgeon or ortho about what's going on. So it just different, because now this was about 20 years ago. So anyway, then, as we're growing up, he continued to play sports. He ended up getting a college scholarship to play football and ended up that he went to play at West Georgia. And then conveniently, a couple of years into school, I ended up going to West Georgia and we got to live together. It was crazy. It was literally living in a frat house. I'm like in the last year of my school. They're in the beginning of their school, partying every day. And I'm just literally trying to survive and get into grad school was my goal. So, we go through all of that together. So I preface all this to say, to give a background of us, it's just very normal. So fast forward, several years, I am getting married and I've been with my now husband. I have been with him for 5 or 6 years. Now we've been together for 15, 16 years, which is crazy. We were engaged. We're about to get married. I'm about to also finish school. So this is November of 2016. I'm literally about to finish graduate school for my occupational therapy degree, my master's, and then I'm also about to get married literally within days of each other. I had no idea this was even going to be the case of being this close together, but it just timed out that way. So I finished school on a Thursday, did my rehearsal dinner on a Friday, and we got married on Saturday. We had a beautiful, just local wedding with all of us. And again, everybody was present. My family was present, including my brother. And my brother and my husband were also very close and did everything, together leading up to the wedding. And so the day of the wedding, there was nothing that was abnormal or crazy, nothing going on. We didn't have any drama. It was just a beautiful day. I remember getting in the limo with, Stefan, my husband. We just went to the hotel and it was fine. Woke up that next morning and I just had a feeling. I was like, I need to call my mom. I feel like there's something going on. I need to call her. And I called her on the way to the airport. She's like, hey, how are you? I'm like, is everything good? She's like, everything's fine. I'm like, okay. I just wanted to make sure everything was okay. She's like, yep, everything's good. So we were going to the Dominican Republic and we landed, we did not have cell service on the plane. So let me back up to say that we got on the plane, everything's good. Halfway through, we lose internet. And I remember we were like, oh, this is so annoying. We can't watch any TV. We can't watch anything. We lose internet halfway through the flight. So and that was just such a godsend at that point. But we lose internet halfway through the flight and end up landing, and my stepdad had called. And my husband wanted to answer at the airport. We're about to walk through customs. And I'm like, absolutely, you cannot answer. It's going to cost us so much money. He's probably just calling about something with the dogs. We just need to get to the resort. And he's like, no, I need to call him. I feel like I really need to call him back. So he called him back, and my stepdad had to tell him that Jake had died, and very unexpectedly. It's so hard sometimes to still talk about, even 10 years later. Yeah. And then Stefan had to tell me, he's my not even 24-hour-old husband, of your brother has passed away. And it just immediately gutted me. It's like, Jake is dead. Jake is dead. Like, I am screaming and hysterical in this airport, and this literal, she is an angel in the Dominican Republic, comes up to me. She worked for Delta, and she's like, "What's going on?" I said, my brother just died. I've got to get back on that plane back to Atlanta. And she's like, "Don't worry, the same thing happened to me." And I'm like, "What?" Just, I can't even process that. She's like, "I'm getting you back on this plane." I'm like, so then at that point, I'm calling everyone. Everyone is just like, "Oh my gosh, I can't believe this. What do you need from me? Where do you want me to go?" And I'm like, "I've got to get home as quickly as possible." And some lady is screaming in Spanish at so many people that we've got to get these people back on the plane. I still, can vividly see this. And then, within minutes, it was not long. We're back in this random room in the Dominican Republic airport. And she's like, "You're good. Don't worry about, customs, anything. We're getting you back on the plane. We'll get your bags. They'll be delivered to your house." And I don't even know how that happened in that way. So anyway, we get back on the plane, and I just remember just being hysterical and not knowing why. And I'm trying to message people and say, "Why? What happened?" And nobody knows what happened. It's just so shocking, right? I just had the happiest day of my life of something that I had looked forward to so much. I'd wrapped up this huge accomplishment with school. I've married the love of my life. I'm on the way to my honeymoon. This is a dream. And then your world is shattered in a moment. And so I bring back up the internet on the way there. That going out was such, a godsend, because people found out about halfway through. That's whenever they found out that we were on the plane, and started posting on Facebook immediately. And which is like crazy that you even think that people will do that so quickly. And they do. They start posting. And I can't imagine, had I found out on the plane even more, I would have probably had to have been restrained. I was just, again, hysterical. So then whenever you lose somebody, every time then you see somebody that knows you or knows the person that's passed, I can never forget seeing each one of my best friends or family members for the first time. And it's just that grief all over again. I can still remember it just so clearly of seeing them. And again, still this whole time of why, what happened. So we go through finally getting home, finally just getting to my mom. That's all I wanted to see. And I want to just talk about this because so often we don't know what is this life? What could it look like of life after death for somebody that's so tragic like that? And it is physical pain from within your heart. I still remember my chest and my heart hurting so much, and then you're physically sick, and everybody around you is just the same. You sometimes think that death is not, I think, not necessarily as big of a deal, but just that people will be fine and it will be okay and they will accept it. And it's just so not that way. But anyway, so we get through that week, and we had to run an autopsy because we didn't know what happened. All we knew was that his friend had found him in the room unresponsive and had to do CPR, and he was gone. That next morning, on that Sunday after we got married on the 20th of November. Then we had to do an autopsy, and we were shocked to discover that he had died of a drug overdose, an alcohol overdose, and that it was heroin mixed with fentanyl, mixed with cocaine. And he also had shrooms in his system, and he had a heavy, heavy amount of alcohol in his system. Now, we had been at a wedding, so of course we expected drinking, but we were shocked to see that drugs were in his system and that he had any sort of drugs. Like, we knew, okay, maybe I knew that from living with him that periodically he had done cocaine, periodically he had smoked weed, but that was it. And again, it did not match up. And it was insane of finding out right before the funeral that he had died of this overdose. Because to me, he wasn't an addict. He wasn't somebody who was addicted to drugs or to alcohol or struggled in any capacity. Because then, before that time, so we did school, and then he worked, and he had a really good job. He was, again, still very successful on the outside. So there was nothing that was showing. And as we know now, I know more now with addiction, you can present very successful, very healthy, very active, very engaged at your job. And it is truly can be this closet demon that you have no idea that it's happening to someone. So we got to the when we got the autopsy, and it's taken a long time. I mean, over these last he's now been gone for 9 years of accepting that he was an addict, that he was addicted to drugs, he was addicted to alcohol, and to kind of backpedal, bring up the back injury at the beginning because that is where we kind of feel like it started. But again, he's not here. We don't know. Maybe that wasn't. But it does feel like maybe that was the starting point and should have had much more awareness and, more guardrails of what could have happened, trying to protect him and not have the outcome that it did. But again, the hard part that I've learned so much about addiction is it's a personal choice. You have to make the choice that you are going to make changes and not succumb to this demon of something that is really controlling and ruining your life. And for him, he didn't get that choice. He played a very risky game often of mostly, I think, binge drinking, where he was trying different drugs and felt very invincible. He had a lot of different other encounters that were kind of escaping something bad that could have happened. He had lots of those, where he didn't get caught or something didn't go all the way through, or he didn't have as bad of an outcome, where he had to go to the hospital or anything like that. So it then, with his passing, it then turns into this pre-Jake and post-Jake is how now I feel like I still live my life. It's so hard some days still, even again, prepping for this, and I start thinking about everything and thinking about what could have happened and what could have changed and where my life really is now at this point, because it's shaped very differently. And like you said in that quote, it's very different of this storm that we weather, and there is so many other than micro storms around it. And sometimes I forget about those because that one still feels so big that I can't even see the smaller storms around me because it just doesn't still compare of this massive one that's really, really changed my life. There was a point of time where I didn't want children. I did not want kids. And I was like, I can't possibly imagine going through that like my mom, because it has completely wrecked her, just made me really consider I don't see how I could possibly go through that. I don't see how I could possibly be able to have these babies and love them and then have them taken away from me. But I realized whenever you have children, it doesn't matter if you know them for 1 hour or 1 day or 100 days or 100 years, it's not long enough. So it's a risk. It's a risk you have to take, but it's something that as a mom that you're just so happy to have met them regardless, and these humans that they are, but you want them, of course, here forever and ever. So anyway, it's where my life really took a turn, especially that was a point that I, again, really started opening up more about drugs and alcohol and what that would look like for me and what it looks like for my future and how I wanted to reshape that and refocus and keep, again, my eye on addiction, because now this was this new thing and where I'm really going. And so that year especially turned into the worst year of my life. It was an awful year. I had several more unexpected deaths with close friends and family, and just personally it was so hard. I was starting my first year of marriage, at rock bottom. I mean, it was horrible. I had no honeymoon. We had no honeymoon phase. It was so sad of a first year of marriage and something that should have been so fun and, we still feel very robbed of. So with that, right, then comes all this anger that you feel towards somebody who died, and you feel so angry about their selfishness of what they chose to make a decision around choosing a substance, over being present and just having fun, and instead chose this life-altering decision. So from that point with him and being able to work through so much of my anger and so much of my just frustration as to why he did that. It took a really long time, and I won't say it's not something I still periodically think about different ways of what I'm angry for that he's not not present for here with my kids and with my mom. But it truly has helped shape me into being more resilient, having more empathy, having more understanding, and recognition of maybe someone that is going through a hard time. I'm very comfortable with, or unfortunately, talking about grief and being that person that's going to reach out and have those hard conversations with friends because I know what it's like. I 100% know what it's like. I feel like one of the worst experiences of death. And I remember the people of who stepped in and who was really there and made this big impact. And that's somebody I want to continue to be my friends and for those around me of what I can offer. But it really is something that has shaped me into who I am. So I went through the therapy and about wanting to have kids and again realized that. Done lots and lots of therapy over the years and I still go to therapy and still, that big storm pops up once in a while. But recently at church this past week, it was actually very good timing of talking about choosing your hard. And there's that poem about choosing your hard and what you're going to choose to do. And I feel like I've been at so many points since my brother died of choosing your hard, choosing to lean into your depression and your anger or choosing happiness and choosing to be more positive and choosing what I'm going to ultimately make my path and what I am going to do and what I'm going to advocate for. So yeah, that's a little bit of my background with him of, where we really found out when our lives changed. So.
Wow, girl. I apologize to the YouTube viewers because I was crying. I think that your story, it touches me so emotionally because I can feel the love that you had for your brother and that
Mhm.
deep grief. Like, oh, girl. Yeah, I can feel it come through. It makes me teary talking about it again because you guys grew up together. It was
Yeah.
you and him and talking about the divorce. You're right. Your parents weren't always there because you lived in two separate houses, but your brother was always there. And there's
Mhm.
the family dynamic, the brother love. There's just something really special about that. I know he was your younger brother, but he's like your rock, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. And so I think grief is love with nowhere to go, so you have
Yeah.
all of this love with nowhere to go, and I can totally track with what you're saying about the chest pain. When I lost my father, I was having intense physical pain, like chest. I literally went to urgent care and I was like, I'm having a heart
Yeah.
attack.
Yeah.
They're like,
Yeah.
it's a broken heart.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you can die, as a practitioner that you can die of it's broken heart syndrome.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a real thing and
Hmm.
I felt it.
Yeah.
So,
I wanted to ask you some follow-up questions about your story. So your children, I know they're really young right now. Do you think you'll share what happened with your brother with your children?
absolutely. I
Yeah.
mean, I think that's where so much of fear comes from of even wanting to have kids and could this happen? And my mom talked so much about addiction and drugs and alcohol. While she didn't partake, she talked so much about it. And so it's like, of not doing it. This is what can happen. These are the consequences. This is what could occur. And it didn't matter, and it's still something I want to share, but how am I going to really not make an impact, but what would I do differently? I had a friend recently, her son died of the same thing, and we had a mutual friend say, how could you have parented differently? She has two other really successful children that have done well, and then one that died of a drug and alcohol overdose, like Jake. I mean, same with me and him. It's definitely something I will be sharing. I talk a lot about Jake now, but not why he isn't here.
When you guys were younger, when you were growing up, was he ever diagnosed with any mental health condition?
No, and that's also something we talk about often. Um, I have diagnosed ADHD. Feel like that he struggled a lot in school, that he probably had ADHD or even dyslexia. And then I think it almost manifested into depression. But no, he did not have a very clear diagnosis. And that was one topic that was not talked about as much whenever we were growing up. And that's, I think anybody who was born in the 80s or 90s, it wasn't talked about.
Yeah.
So,
I didn't know your brother personally, but your pictures of him, because I've known you for so long, I would see you
yeah.
post pictures of him, and he seemed just like life of the party, happy go lucky, huge smile on his face. Were there ever incidents where there was like writing on the wall about his drug use or alcohol use? Did he ever have to go to the hospital or any of his friends were worried about him?
No. Nope, I never had an instance where he went to the hospital that I'm aware of. His friends never brought to our attention of, hey, I'm really worried about Jake, he's kind of going down this path. There was nothing.
Yeah. I know you are a woman of faith. How has your spirituality shifted and kind of reorganized after this life event?
It's been hard because you ask a lot of why, why would this happen to me? And then on the flip side, I couldn't imagine it not being any stronger because I'm so deeply rooted in that I'll see him again. Like, I can't imagine then not believing in God and being of anything of what I'm going to believe after. And that I believe that, we will go to heaven, we will be restored, and that I will see him. And I have had several dreams of him, and he is just perfectly restored. And I believe it. So, in a way, while it's challenging, you wrestle with it, it almost gets even stronger because I couldn't imagine not believing in that. I couldn't imagine not having faith and being rooted in that because it would kill me. It would just absolutely overpower me of the grief still.
Yeah. We were talking about in the beginning life events, and you had some really awesome ones, right? You just graduated, you were getting married, honeymoon, and then you had these horrible events. You had them all happen at one time, the good and the bad,
Yeah.
which is like something out of a blockbuster movie. How did you get through that first year? I know you had mentioned it was the hardest year of your life. What do you think were the things that helped get you through that?
My friends and my husband. It was both of them. Stefan was an absolute rock and an angel. And he was so good for me and so good with me. And still have, just very good girlfriends that checked on me and made sure I was good. I was also still very involved in CrossFit. I credit so much of that to that community that I really got to plug into. I had a lot of people around me just um, cheering me on. And yeah, I could not have made it without them. And then, of course, my mom, but she was going through her own issues as well at that time of trying to just survive. But truly, I have to credit just staying active and exercising, and then my friends and my husband.
Yeah. I always knew you and your husband had a really special bond because I used to work out with you guys and you were
Yes.
adorable. But, big life events like that can completely destroy a marriage.
Yeah.
It seems like it only made yours stronger. Did you
Yeah.
guys get to go on a honeymoon ever? Did you get a redo?
We did. We were really blessed again with our CrossFit community that because we were so broke. Was not working because I had just graduated, and our CrossFit community raised us enough money so we could go on a honeymoon. And we ended up going on our 1 year anniversary. And it was so fun. It was such a redemption. And kind of that second year ended up being much more of like a redemption year. But yeah, we did get to go, which was really, really nice. And again, just a great community. I couldn't, that's like, I could not imagine not having that of that culture and everybody wanting to help. I felt so much love. So yes, we did get to go.
Where did you go?
We went to Mexico, went to the Playa Mujeres, yeah, and it was
Awesome.
great. Never gotten to go back since because, then we had kids,
Yeah.
so
How was
just been busy.
How was your pregnancies? Do you feel like finding out you were having a boy and all of that, was that more of an emotional journey for you?
Definitely. Especially, I feel like pregnancy was just so hard for me in general because I was so sick. I was sick the entire time. Even though I was active and ate healthy and everything, I was terribly sick. So it was more whenever I had Baker and like I said, I just got it of like, this is just what life is all about. Like, this is amazing. And then I felt so much more grief then for this new level of grief for my mom of then understanding, this was her baby. And so I just felt so much around her and her loss. And so it really, that next phase of life really opened up so much with just different levels of grief. And I found that to be more true. I was a little bit more prepared with it when I had Brooks, but of just bringing in new life, bringing in new things or changes makes me, just really bring on this new wave of grief about him because I want to share that experience with him. I want to talk to him. Just a fun tangent about Baker. I talk a lot about Jake. I try to bring it up. It's hard to conceptualize, oh, okay, I had a brother. Talk about, my other siblings too. But he's like, Jake, he said, well, you don't have any siblings, Mom. And I was like, yeah, I do. I lay Tanner and Trey and Taylor and, Uncle Cameron and Uncle Clay. I was like, and then we have Uncle Jake, my brother. And he goes, Uncle Jake, I don't know Uncle Jake. So I showed him a picture. I said, this is Uncle Jake. And he goes, Mom, that's me. Why would you show me a picture of that? And he is like, since he was born, Baker has reminded me of Jake. He looks like Jake. He acts like Jake. He's got his same eyes, everything. I've looked at him and I'm like, oh my gosh, all the time. And he said that and I was like, oh, I was like, no, this is Jake. He's like, that's me. I showed him another picture. He goes, Mom, that's just me. And I mean, I could not convince him otherwise.
That is so
But
cute and like
I
sweet
know.
and spiritual and like
It is.
it's
I know.
crazy.
It just is like, it's crazy, and
Hmm.
it's hard. Like, I am very deeply rooted in my faith, but it's hard to still be like, there's just these pieces of people I think that do still come out in your kids or in other people. And because it's just so many reminders of him. And I just see that so much with him. So, yeah.
You had mentioned therapy, which I'm a big
Mhm.
fan of therapy. Kind of describe how you got into that. Did you have to try a few therapists? And then what type of therapy do you do?
Yeah, I mean, I've done a couple different kinds. I've done a lot of different therapists. I primarily stayed with a grief counselor or therapist for a really long time and stayed in that realm. And because of just trying to not get through grief, but just there was just a while where I feel like I just was not wanting to get to this next side over the storm, right? I was still stuck very much in it. And I just wasn't able to get through this other side. And I spent a lot of time with that. And then I've taken some breaks and then come back. And now I just see a regular therapist. I just do mostly talk therapy and really pinpointing, where these feelings, mostly for me, it's anger and frustration around it. And of course, behind anger is sadness and working through that because it manifests into other problems that I see or that I struggle with now and that I blame a lot on that. If this wouldn't happen, then this wouldn't happen, which may or may not be the case, but it's definitely different.
I love how you brought up the whole aspect of, you had a normal childhood. Your brother
Mhm.
had you and him normal childhood, and your brother was a athlete, a college athlete. Everybody loved him. He was popular,
Well,
but
yeah,
addiction does not discriminate. It can affect anyone. It affects your teachers, your politicians, your doctors, your nurses, your nurse practitioners. I mean, from my own
yep,
experience of going through addiction, nobody knew. Very easily could have been in a situation like your brother if I had kept on that train. And because I hid it from everyone, you just don't want
yep,
to bother people with your problems. You're also completely embarrassed about the hell that you are in. And you
yes.
don't want anyone to know, especially if you
Mhm.
suffer from perfectionism or trying to, upkeep a certain image. So yeah, I think society has this idea that you either had to go through big T trauma when you were a child or you grew up in, some yucky atmosphere. No, I grew up just like you
No,
did, divorced family, but loved and taken care of. And I had food and water and shelter and, a great life. But just certain things can happen and you can get into a deep, dark hole. And there's not a lot of help for you when you're in the hole. It's because it's so
yep,
stigmatized in our society. So I am so proud of you for coming out and talking about your brother and keeping his legacy alive and using what happened to him for the greater good.
yep, definitely,
Yeah.
definitely.
Do you have any plans moving forward, in terms of his honor or the work that you're doing now? What are your goals moving forward?
I thought a lot about this, especially recently. A friend, like I mentioned, a friend's son passed away very similarly. And I keep, right after Jake died, I read a book by Levi Luosco about Through the Eyes of a Lion. It's so good. It's about his daughter and her passing away very unexpectedly of an asthma attack. And it's just very good about what he talks about and talking about grief and describing grief. And I still remember just reading it and like, oh my gosh, I get it. Like he gets it. This is exactly how it is. And he talks so much about using your pain as a platform. And in my head, and I keep kind of saying for almost a decade of like, well, what's going to be my platform? And it's hard even coming on here to me, it feels like, oh, there's so many other people that are struggling so much, and they have this going on, and childhood cancer, and they're struggling with their own addictions or their own things and own struggles. And so, but I'm like, I don't know what my platform would be that I'm really talking about this. That's very there, but how impactful. So to answer your question, I don't know yet, but I think about it often and what I would really do and how I would bring more awareness. I would love to do something like an old school CrossFit competition. I'd love to get back into doing that and raising money. Also, there's just lots of room for involvement. I thought a lot about getting involved with foster care and working through that as kind of a platform. But yeah, it's kind of to be decided. I think when I know, I'll know, and this is maybe step one.
Yeah, I can see the fire burning in you. You've got
Yeah,
it in
thanks.
there. And I love where you're going with that. And you don't have to have it all figured out right now.
Yeah.
Just keep doing these little steps and it'll all fall into place. The universe conspires to help you when it's right.
Yep, exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
I really can't thank you enough for sharing your story. I knew some of your story, but to hear you tell it like you did, it just extremely powerful. And while someone may not have gone through exactly what you went through, I'm sure other people have gone through intense amount of grief and they'll be able to relate to you, relate to your vulnerability, but then also see your strength going through it. And that's what gives people hope. Yeah.
Yes, excellent. Yeah.
So I want to take us to the lightning round. And
Okay.
these lightning rounds are so interesting after a very powerful story like this. But I really feel like the listeners get invested in who you are and they love you
Okay.
after you share your story. And so they're curious about your interest. So the
Okay.
very first question is you're given 3 options. You have to pick
Okay.
one: shark dive, bungee jump, or skydive. Which one are you choosing?
Oh, vegan. That's a toughie.
Yeah.
None of those are in my wheelhouse at all. But if I have to pick one,
Yes.
I mean, I'm going to go bungee. I'm going to go with
Okay.
something that is going to hold on to me and
Okay.
somebody's going to have to push me off. I'm not going willingly. They're
Okay.
going to have to push me.
Like a tandem bungee. Love
Tandem bungee. Yeah,
tandem
absolutely.
bungee. Okay, love it.
Yeah. Headphones in, can't hear anything,
Yeah.
push me off.
Okay. Number 2, you're in a simulation. Every time you walk into a room, the same song plays. What's your song?
Oh, right now? Oh, it's Cliche by MGK.
Oh my God, that's my favorite song right
It's my favorite song right now. And I am hyper focused on it. And
Yes.
I'm like, what am I going to start my day with? Cliche.
Oh
And
my
then
God, that
get
is
back in the
so,
car.
that is,
Cliche.
okay. I literally, my kids were making fun of me because I listen to it all day long and I like jump around. Like I'm
Oh, I
excited.
love it. Me too. I'm
And the
excited every time.
music video is so good. He's like doing a
It's
little
so good.
dance. I'm
It's
like,
so good. I love
MGK,
it.
you can dance?
I love it. I did too much of a deep dive then on MGK recently, and I'm like, I love him.
I'm
This is
obsessed.
great. I
Like
want to see him.
I saw him in concert, one of the best concerts. He was like flying from the
Wow.
ceiling, but he's so cool because he does so many, like he can rap, he can sing, he can do
Yeah.
pop
He's
punk.
very talented.
Very
Yeah.
talented. Love
I
him.
love it.
He's kind of polarizing figure, but I'm a huge fan and I'm not embarrassed about it.
He's definitely polarized.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. Number 3, what's your favorite Disney movie?
Like in most recent years, probably Encanto. I
so
love
good.
Encanto.
So
It's
good.
really cute.
The music
So,
is so good too.
yeah,
Love
it's really
it.
good.
Number 4, what is something you're obsessed with?
Obsessed with. I mean, probably getting my steps in.
Okay.
I mean, I'm probably pretty obsessed with my steps.
That's good. How
If I'm
much?
talking about something that's just for me,
Yeah.
I am a 10K a day girly.
Okay.
I'm getting my 10K every single day.
Okay.
I'm going to put the kids to bed and I'm going to walk up and down my driveway if I need to.
Okay.
And that. But then personally, I mean, I'm obsessed with my children. I'm obsessed with my husband. But for me, I'm definitely obsessed with getting my 10K steps in.
Yeah. I've definitely been there, like laps around my house. Do you have a Garmin or Apple Watch? What do you track it
I have
with?
an Apple Watch. Yeah.
And I just wanted to comment about your husband because I don't think everyone finds their soulmate, but you and him are soulmates for sure. It's
That's very kind.
if you're ever
I
in the
feel that
same,
way.
yeah, if you're ever in the same room with you, you get it. Like I've been in the room with you and you make sense. And I've been with other couples and I'm like, yeah, they're soulmates. Not everyone finds their soulmates. Maybe 10% of the world, but you found yours.
Yeah, I feel like I did. He's a good guy.
Yeah.
So,
You guys
yeah.
complement each other very well. And he's
Thank
your
you.
biggest supporter. When we were in the gym, he was just hyping you up, your biggest cheerleader.
He always is. Even now, now it's different seasons of work, and he is just always like, yep, that sounds great. I support you. This is awesome. Go for it. You can do it. I recently got a promotion, and I was just like, I don't think I should do this. This is just so much. This is a lot more leadership. And he's like, you have to do it. You have to do it. There's no other option. You can do this. You're great for the job. And he really has. He's just checked in on me every day since, made sure I'm alive and well at work, and he's very supportive. So, yeah.
Yeah. I see a lot of couples in my practice. A lot of people come in together for their physicals,
Mhm.
and you can tell either they're on the same team or they're on opposite teams. And
Yeah.
you and Stefan are on the same team. So, yeah, he roots for you.
Oh,
Okay, last question. What does freedom mean to you?
man, that's a tough one. I mean, I think of so many different things. I think of freedom with your mind. A lot of times your mind can kind of hold you hostage about what you're wanting to do or how you can do it. Just like me talking about taking that job, it was all up here. I think about that, of feeling just really fulfilled in everything, and financial freedom. I mean, health freedom, there's so much. Physical freedom. I don't know. That's a broad one for me. I think of so many different aspects of freedom and what that would look like. But for me, it's a lot within my mind,
Mhm.
right?
Yeah,
But
I agree. I agree with that answer.
mhm.
I can't thank you enough for coming on. You're going to help so many people with this story. So thank you so much for sharing.
Thank you, Megan. Thanks for having me.
All right, girl. Love ya. Bye.
Bye.